by the time I hit 7, it was clear I had some really big problems in math and reading, going back to the education, because I had a really bad case of dyslexia.
My favorite marketer is Princess Diana.
In a company where the whole team consistently hits goals, the culture becomes very sticky and nobody wants to leave.
Rise and shine, it's espresso time. Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I am not a morning person. But when you start your day with a powerful routine that inspires you, like watching one of these videos, it can change your life. So let's start your day off right together. Grab your coffee, know that I believe in you, and get ready for a shot of espresso from Kevin O'Leary.
I wake up every morning.
Espresso keep me going.
I wake up every morning.
When I was growing up, I was born from immigrants, an Irish and Lebanese, an Irish father, Lebanese mother. And by the time I hit 7, it was clear I had some really big problems in math and reading, going back to the education, because I had a really bad case of dyslexia. And so in those days, dyslexic, outcomes were bad because you really fell behind in school. And they didn't really understand how it worked. And luckily, I was very fortunate. My mother was desperate. She was trying to find a solution for this because I was falling behind really quickly in those critical years in early school. And so she found this woman named Marjorie Golick, who had an experimental. Sam Rabinovich and Marjorie Golick were researchers. They're published all around the world now. But they basically thought they could take dyslexic children after school, maybe 12 or 18, and put them into an experimental program where they try and convince the kids that dyslexia is actually a superpower that other people don't have, so that your confidence really advances. And that's what they ended up doing with me. They said, look, do you know anybody else in your class that can read a book upside down in a mirror? No, you're the only guy that can do it. That's a power. They wish they could do it, they can't. And so that started to give me the confidence, because dyslexia doesn't really retard learning, it just makes the incumbent tools in schools useless to you. I mean, nobody gives you a book upside down in a mirror. You have to learn how to deal with what dyslexia does. And once I had that solved, it was a very interesting acceleration that occurred. And you find in business today all kinds of founders of companies, like the guy that founded JetBlue, a really bad case of dyslexia. I think it helps you think outside of the box. And I've always thought business is half creativity that comes from the chaos of the arts and half the discipline of science. Business is binary. You either make money or you lose it. I think great CEOs, great entrepreneurs combine the chaos of art with the discipline of science. And I believe that to be the case. And I look for that in the people I invest in now. And I think that dyslexic, chaos for me was a pivotal point and a catalyst that I could build some of my, direction off.
Your greatest weakness can become your greatest strength. The thing that you are the most insecure about, most afraid of, most worried about, that you tell yourself that you suck at, that thing can become your superpower if you let it. Just a little mindset shift to recognize that you are special, you are a unique snowflake, you are different, and to embrace that instead of trying to be normal in the thing that you're not. So for example, I look at myself and I'm introverted, I'm shy, I'm afraid to get on stage. My biggest fear is disappointing people. And for years, the biggest fight with my agent was that I didn't want to be famous. He would say, and this guy's, has been a huge blessing in my life, helped manage Mel Robbins and Grant Cardone and a bunch of other people. And I met him early enough on in my journey that he just, I guess, took a liking to me. He said, hey, Evan, the problem, most people when they come to us, they're great on camera, but they have no message. You're the opposite. You have a great message. You believe in what you're doing, but you suck on camera. I've been doing YouTube for 5 years at that point. Like, oh, ouch, you're killing me, Steve, that hurts. But he was right. And he took a flyer on me to try to make me better. And the biggest fight we would always get into is like, the problem with you is you don't want to be famous. Evan, you don't want to be famous. It's like, why is that a problem, Steve? I think that's good. Famous people, I used to think had a big ego and, rip people off. And you look at someone like Kevin O'Leary and he seems to be like type A personality, extrovert, always talking to people. And that's not me. I don't talk to people. I don't like talking to people. I don't network. I suck at small talk. I'm introverted. I'm shy. I have no need to be famous. And we would fight over that for a long time until I recognized he finally said it in a way that, hey, the more people know you, the more people hear your message. And that finally sunk in, like, okay, well, actually, I need to, it's not even about me anymore, it's about the message. So I need to be the front man for this, and I need to spread the message more. But I used to feel like being an introvert, being shy, would always hold me back in this space. It's like I would do the best that I could, but I would always be second or third or fourth or like a millionth to people like Kevin O'Leary, because he's so outgoing and outspoken. And you look at the people on TV, and you look at Oprah, and you look at Kevin, and you look at Mark Cuban, and you look at these people who are just so seemingly outgoing. And I felt like, well, that's not me, so I can't do it. I'm not going to win. And in trying to be like them, exactly like them, I always failed. I always struggled. I always suffered because I couldn't do it. It just didn't. It felt not wrong, but it just didn't feel me. It felt like I was being fake. And it wasn't until I realized that, hey, you know what? Like, introverts want to serve too. You know, I don't know why that was such a revelation, but it was. Introverts want to serve. I want to serve. I still want to serve. Introverts can still have a big message. Introverts can still be in front of the camera. Like, you don't have to hide behind everything. I still want to serve. Introverts still want to feel like we're doing work that matters, right? We still feel like that. I think that's a human thing, not an introvert extrovert thing. So how can I be a role model for introverts? You know, how do we build a model based off of service? How do we show people a different way of doing it? And I don't have all the answers, and I'm still trying to figure everything out. But a lot of the work that I'm doing, most of it kind of breaks the mold. I'm working with two amazing marketing guys, and they've worked with some of the biggest campaigns, and they're doing the typical stuff right now with quiz funnels and squeeze pages and all of the typical marketing stuff. So I don't like that stuff. I don't like the idea of just doing a fake quiz just to get somebody's email address and not giving them value. Like, what? We need to find a new way of doing things. It's like, well, who do you look up to the most as a marketer? And I guess they're looking at to try to find a style, right? They pick whoever marketer, and we'll copy that. It's like, my favorite marketer is Princess Diana. You're like, what? Princess Diana. Like, okay, explain that to me. Why is Princess Diana your favorite marketer? Like, well, she was introverted, she was shy, but she was still in the public eye. She had a whole bunch of responsibilities, but she had her own take on it, right? Like, the part of the royal family was always sharing and contributing and being of service, and she did it, but she did it in her own way. She took on causes that nobody else wanted to touch. And she used the spotlight on her to try to spread positivity. And I liked how she did it. She was the outsider to the royal family. And I mean, I don't know her entire story, but that part of it really appealed to me. It's like, who's this introverted, shy person, but still standing up for what she believed in and who she was. So how do we bring that to a modern day online marketing environment? I don't know, but that's the goal. Like, I know the heart of what I'm trying to accomplish, and we ended up calling it the heart funnel. So there's the quiz funnel, and there's the, I don't know, all sorts of different funnels. Well, this is the heart funnel. Like, how do you lead with heart and service? I'm happy to make as many videos as you want. I'm happy to do DMs to people. Like, I love welcoming people. Community is a big part of what I do. And so, well, most of the clients we work with try to work their way out of having to talk to anybody. They just want to make it as efficient as possible. It's like, well, I think that's the best part. Like, I think the community is the best part of all of this. So I'll make as many videos as you need me to. Say, well, I wish more of our clients thought like that. And so the whole point of that is not to build me up. It's just to show a different way of doing things. Like, I like being an introvert. I like leading with service. I like having a heart funnel. I like making videos to showcase things. I like recognizing people. I like doing video DMs for people. I genuinely like that stuff, and nobody else is really doing it. And so instead of saying, well, nobody's doing it, so I suck and I have to then fit into somebody else's mold, it's saying, no, let's break the mold and do something new that fits me, because that's then how I stand out. And the same thing for you. It's how you end up standing out. So it's taking that perceived weakness, something that I always thought was a weakness that would hold me back, and thinking I would, always be left behind, and turning that into something that's different and a superpower that I can really believe in. So how do we make that happen for you? How do you make that action step happen for you? Step number one is think about what is your perceived weakness. Like, why can't you win? Ask yourself. You have to really ask yourself, why can't you win? What's the biggest struggle you're facing? Like, what about you intrinsically as a human do you think is holding you back? Not just connections or education, but physically. Like, what do you think? Oh, I can't win because I'm a what? I'm a what? Fill in that blank. Because when you can get honest with yourself, it allows for a much clearer path forward. So what is that blank for you? I'm a blank. I'm not going to win because I'm a blank, right? 2, go find somebody who's done it. Kevin O'Leary found the teacher that showed that dyslexia was a superpower. I'm trying to create the model to show that introverts can be thought leaders and win as well. Find somebody who's done it. They may be a little more challenging to find, but even just using the right keyword, even just going to YouTube and searching, how is dyslexia a superpower? How is introversion a superpower, right? How is humility a superpower? Or whatever you think is your problem. And there might be lots of videos about how just to cope with it, managing strategies, as opposed to, those aren't the ones you want to watch because those keep you stuck where you are. You want to watch the ones like, no, we're changing the game. Like this is, you're actually better than these other people. Not to make yourself, in an ego way, but you have this thing that's in you is special, is different, is unique, and can make you excel where other people can't. For example, introverts, I think are way better listeners. I used to think I would suck as an interviewer. I used to hate doing interviews of being the person asking the questions because I thought I would disappoint people and I'm not a good conversationalist and I don't like talking to people, so I would suck as an interviewer. But I'm a great listener. I'm an introvert, so introverts I think are great listeners. And I think if you're a great listener, you actually ask better questions because instead of just worrying about you getting your next thought out, you're actually paying attention to what they're saying, which allows you to ask a better follow-up question. Because the best questions aren't the initial questions, it's the follow-up questions. It's they said something and you're pulling on that thread to get more information out. So that's one way that I think introverts can win because you're better listeners than extroverts. So you're trying to find, you go to YouTube and you look for people who are doing it, who are winning off of your superpower, right? So step one, identify what is your weakness. 2, you go to YouTube or Google and you start searching for people who think of it as a superpower. And then 3, you surround yourself with it as much as possible. Subscribe to those channels, buy those books, be around it constantly because the world is telling you that you're a defect, right? The world is telling you that you're less than, that you don't belong, that you can't do this, that you're broken, that you're defective, and that you can't make it. That's what the world is telling you to do, right? That's what the world says. As long as that's in your world, you're going to believe that. The fastest way to change your beliefs is to change your environment. So you change your environment by surrounding yourself with those people. So have it on the wall, have the books, by your office, have a subscription. If my videos help you do that, subscribe to the channel, have it fill up your YouTube feed, have it fill up your Instagram feed, right? Even if there's only 10 people who even talk about it, great. Follow those 10 people. Look at every piece of content they put out. Buy all of their books. Have it around your office and your home and where you are. Have your favorite quotes from them printed and put on the wall and put it as your cell phone background and your desktop background. You don't need to have that many people, but you need to surround yourself with it in your physical environment because when you see it consistently showing up, it'll start to trigger it in your brain that you could be this person too, that it is actually possible. When the world is telling you that you're broken, these 10 people are telling you that you're superhuman. That makes all the difference in the world. So step 1, identify what you think your biggest weakness is as a human. 2, find the people who think that's actually superpower. And then 3, surround yourself with them daily. You do that, it'll really start to shift your mindset. And when you start to feel like a superhero, if you can actually feel like a superhero, like you have a gift, as opposed to being broken, defective, and needing to be fixed, you shift that mindset, everything changes. Now I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? The science says that when you just watch a video, you get motivated, you get inspired, you have a 35% chance of following through on your goals. 35%! That's not enough. That's not enough just to get motivated. Believe Nation, we're here, you're here. Today matters. You're an action taker. When you commit to a plan of action, of when and how you're going to follow through. When you write it down, you have a 91% chance of following through. And when you commit publicly to somebody else, it jumps to 95% chance. From 30-something% to 95% chance of you following through. Believe Nation, we need to make this happen. So question of the day, your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action specific for the next week. Put it down in the comments below, and I'm going to show on screen sometime next week to celebrate you.
Let's talk about writing books, because I'm working on my 4th now. I'm hating every minute of it, but I think it's going to be my best. But I always say that with every book. How do you do yours?
This book came when I was on tour last year, and I was hitting the city every 4 days and doing a speech in front of a group, and the questions that people asked me, I just kept like a note of what people kept asking me over and over again, and then it turned it into
And you got, thematically, you would get some very questions over and over again that people had, right? And you say that is a kernel, that's an important question, because they keep getting it all the time. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I was on tour and people kept asking me, how do I find my purpose? How do I find my purpose? How do I find my purpose? It's like this, the #1 question in every city across America. I said, well, that's pretty easy. You don't have to sit on top of a mountain for 10 years or hire a $20,000 business coach. You know, there's a 3-step process to find your purpose. And I just guided them through it. And then everyone's, hey, pick me, do it with me. It's like, okay, well, I'll turn it into a book. And that became Built to Serve.
Sounds good. I got to read that book now. That sounds pretty good. I got to find my purpose. I've really enjoyed our time today. It's
great.
You're a good guy.
Thank you.
I'm going to endorse you. That's fantastic.
Well, let me give you some data which you may find interesting, because I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. The majority of the money I've made in companies that I was part of founding and then were operated by another CEO, the majority has come from companies run by women. Now, like, I'm not trying to start gender warfare here. I'd give money to a goat if I could get a return. I don't care. But you have to ask yourself, what are they doing that is making these outcomes? And remember, these are multiple sectors. I'm talking about insecticide companies, gym equipment companies, commercial kitchens. We have a wireless charging company. I mean, they're all different. And yet the outcomes, women are better. Why? So we did some research. We said, we got to figure this out, because why don't we find out what the great companies are doing and share it with our portfolio companies aren't doing so well? And what we discovered was, rather interestingly, if you look at women-run companies and you look at, because we have all the data, what did they forecast for sales in a quarter? What did they achieve? And then look at the ones run by men. In the case of women, they achieve their goals quarterly 90% of the time, okay? 90. In the case of ones run by men, 65% of the time. Wow. But the men had sales targets 30% higher. So they were really doing what I call the testosterone stretch, really saying, let's go for it, and only hitting it 65% of the time. Now, why would that manifest itself in a difference in cash flow? You got to ask that question, right? Here's why. In a company where the whole team consistently hits goals, the culture becomes very sticky, and nobody wants to leave. There's no staff turnover, there's no disruption in revenue, there's no disruption in accounting, compliance. The team is stuck together. And the ones where they only hit their target 65% of the time, there's a lot of unhappiness and angst, particularly in the sales force. And their staff turnover is much higher. So when we put this new policy in place, you set targets that you hit. We did this 3 years ago now with all the companies. I don't care if there's no growth in your target, but if you hit the target, we started to see lower turnover, and now in the companies that were not doing well, cash flow is up 18%. That's something you should, if it's the only thing you remember today when I'm talking about, set goals you can achieve and watch things happen. Because people want to work in a winning, it's like playing for Brady. Nobody wants to leave the team. Yeah. The guy just keeps winning Super Bowls.
You know, everybody has a path in their career they plan on, but it generally doesn't work out that way. There's a series of events that happen to you along the way, and you don't know as they're happening, because you only realize how important they were maybe a decade later when you realize it was a huge pivot point for you. Mine was when I was working in a summer job in college for a pet food company. And I had a German manager, a really interesting guy, and he taught me that most pet foods at that time were made from Sea of Japan tuna and chicken faces and beef lips and rendered, protein using mango juice to crush it up. Sounds horrific, but those are two basic engines, and then they'd add some peas or, some carrots, and they'd create cat food flavors. Decades later, when I was in the software industry, I realized that we were the leader in math and reading software, and here's where this story comes into play. All my competitors were spending a fortune building unique applications to advance reading and math scores. Those are the two big things you actually create software to advance if you're in education. And I thought to myself, that's crazy. This is really just Sea of Japan tuna and chicken faces. All we need are two engines, and we'll just add characters to them. And that was how the Learning Company became the largest software company in the world in reference in education. We sold it for $4.2 billion. But that manager gave me the idea to synergize around two development groups. So we'd buy a company, fire everybody, and just take the characters they had, and we cut our costs dramatically. Our costs of R&D were half the industries everybody was complaining, but how are we doing it? We're doing it because we understand that software is no different than cat food. I'm not going to give you marriage advice here or whoever you're going to hook up with. Your significant other ends up being very important. And they must be someone that understands you, and you need to understand them, because the romantic euphoria that is the part of the beginning of a relationship is spectacular. And I've said this many times. I wish that on everybody. And some people continually fall in love and out of love just to get that high of the euphoria of just the start of the relationship. But that's not really the challenge. The challenge is staying together. Not so easy. And the reason you got to think about this is staying together is hard, but you're building a foundation of trust, a foundation of perhaps family, an economic foundation. Couples that stay together build their lives together, and they have similar goals, financial goals, life goals. And that equity becomes very valuable over time. It's not easy, but in your 20s, you think about if you want to have kids, you got to start thinking when you're 25 years old, Robin, you got to start thinking about, okay, how old do I want to be when I have my first child? And look, this is a problem that's been around for people for the generations, for thousands of years. You got to think ahead, because one of my great regrets in life is I didn't get married till I was 36, and I didn't have children, till I was 38. I wish I'd had them sooner. I wish I'd made my decision earlier. I can't change that, but I'm giving you advice. You asked me for it. I wish I'd got married a lot earlier, and I wish I'd started having a family a lot sooner, because I would have enjoyed them even more. And to me, family's everything now, and you will find that too. This is advice, good, bad, or ugly. It's your family, and it becomes a big part of your life, and your joys and your sorrows and everything else. I don't want to get too sentimental here, but you get the timing idea. So if you can find that special person in your, late 20s, that ain't a bad thing. That's a good thing. And you have to think more about just, the euphoria of romance. You got to think long term. Is this the right person to hang with for the rest of my life? It doesn't work out that way all the time, and some people get married multiple times. But you wish every time you started one, it would be the one.
There's a big difference between saving and investing. Saving, you don't even beat the inflation rate anymore. Basically, that's the amount of cash you should have on hand just in case poo-poo hits the fan. Catastrophic illness in your family, car accident, something tragic occurs. I like to have 90 days of window. So whatever it costs you to live for a month, have 3 of those, just in case poo-poo hits the fan. So 90 days. But then you should find a way to change your spending habits. And, the people spend money on all kinds of crap they don't need. You look at your closet full of clothes you never wear anymore and shoes you don't wear anymore and all the junk you don't need in consumer electronics. Take a little bit of that and just invest it, not save it, invest it. And that is where you take and use an app like Beanstalks to pull $100 out of your account and automatically put it into a wide, diverse portfolio that you hope will achieve 6 to 8% a year over a long period of time. That's how you become a millionaire when you're in your 60s, and you have a nest egg that you can fall against when you want to retire.
I was going out of my mind sitting here. The first month I was going crazy, and I've got so many investments that are suffering and struggling, and I thought, what can I do to help them? You know, I worked in getting PPP loans. I actually helicoptered money into some places where I needed to invest to keep them alive and keep them open because it was important for them to do that. I'm going to give you a couple examples. You know that career you had 20 years ago, 30 years ago? I was a construction worker for a while. I put rebar into cinder blocks. I was a bricklayer for a while. These were summer jobs I had trying to put myself through school and college. I got a job once as a gaffer for a company that did sports television. They were filming volleyball games and college football games and stuff like that. And I was slinging beer at nights to put myself through college. And then I took the job as a gaffer. A gaffer's kind of person who runs around, sets up the lights, tapes down the cables and all that stuff. But from that business, I eventually got trained how to be a cameraman, then a sound man, then a film editor. I never lost those skills. I still have them. And many of you are in the same situation. You have things you did a long time ago. They don't leave you. It's like riding a bicycle. You remember them forever. So I said, okay, well, maybe I can help my companies as a social media guy. I mean, a lot of people know who I am, so maybe I can record my own commercials right here in this kitchen and help some of my companies because I know how to edit, I know how to record, I know how to do stuff from those days 20, 30 years ago when I was doing that, and I never lost my editing skills. So I just got my chops. Instead of editing on an 8-plate Steenbeck, which was film, like literally film, I learned how to use Premiere Pro, an Adobe product. It's the same basic idea. It's digital, right? Go back to your roots and find something that you can do that you learned a long time ago. Maybe your career's stalled. Maybe you're not going to get hired. Maybe you want to work. Would I work as a bricklayer? Yeah, I know how to do that. But I can make these commercials. So every day I get up in the morning, I say to my companies, what can I do for you? And I'll give you an example. You know, and I know this is, you know, maybe you're going to say it's crass promotion for one of my companies. Yeah, but so what? It's a great example. Love Pop greeting cards. Fantastic company. They had lots of retail stores because when you purchase, when you actually purchase a greeting card, it's often in a store. So we had little stores all over the malls in America. They're all shut down. But the company didn't say, oh, woe is me. They said, well, what can we do to direct to our customers, which is the right thing to do. You think about it that way. And they came up with an idea for Mother's Day, which is, you know, happening this weekend. Instead of making a greeting card, they made this. Flowers, cheaper than ordering real flowers. These are beautiful. They're pieces of art. And they said to me, hey, Kevin, can you record a commercial? So I shot this commercial I'm going to show you right now, right here in the kitchen. I did it because I know how to do it. And they used it on social media to help. And they've sold millions of dollars worth of these now. This is a fantastic idea. And I like to think I helped. Also, Benji Lock. I don't know if you remember this deal. These locks that, you know, obviously are one of our biggest ways of selling it was in retail, and we're not doing that anymore. So what could we do on social media? What could we do? So I called my friends at QVC and I said, hey guys, could we try and sell these Benji locks? I think everybody in America would like to have one of these to, you know, maybe your bicycle helmet, hook it up to your bike, close your purse, your duffel bag, whatever it is. But it's a great product, and would you let me try and sell it direct? And then I also said, why don't I do something with what I know socially? So now that we're all quarantined, I'm working with all my companies trying to get stuff out as we have to switch from retail distribution. Now we've got to go back and do online. We have to work with, you know, Amazon, we got to work with QVC, we got to sell direct. So I'm shooting some video now for one of my companies you may have heard of called Benji Lock. This is a really interesting technology. This is the first fingerprint lock that also has a key. Let me show you the travel version of it as well. So look at this. I mean, I'm going to be filming this for QVC. I'm going to go live on QVC with this thing, and I want to show people how you can basically use a lock like this with your finger and open it up. It's amazing technology. See how that works? But I got to produce some social media before we go nuts. And so what I've done is I've tried to set up a shot here. I'm using an industrial lens to actually get rather interesting image of this lens going right through the locks. So I've set up a program that says, okay, come out for the shot, then go zooming back in, and we're gonna get some really interesting images of these locks that we can use in the social media for the whole QVC thing. It's a great shot. You can see it right there. Yeah, and we're doing it in the kitchen. That's my whole point. And every year the technology gets cheaper. As long as you stay current with it, you understand how to use it. That's the whole key. Why not use your skills from, the past to create new employment? If I can help my company sitting here, stuck in my little studio, Miami prison for I've been here 2 months already, but every day I shoot more stuff and I try and do as much as I can to help them out. So for Benji Lock, it's get this social media shot, cut it, post it, push eyeballs to QVC, sell locks. That's the plan. And the same for all my companies. I'll do that for anybody. But the whole point is use your skill sets from the past to help your businesses today, or get a job today, or do whatever it is you have to do. Because I don't care, every year of your life you're learning something, and you don't forget it, you can bring it back. Now, I remember the gaffer days when I'd wrap tape around light poles, and then the editing days, and then the sound days, and the camera days. Well, here I am doing it all over again. That's my whole point. And you can do the same thing. You also learn things along the way that do not seem important while you're learning them, but years later end up being a really big deal. Let me explain one that happened to me. And you could be learning something today that you're just storing away and is going to be very, very important to you down the road, which is why it's really important in life to shut up and listen. A lot of people haven't figured that out. I have. I know I'm talking to you right now, but one of the things I've learned, the more time I spend in business, the more this is important. The more time I spend in life, this is important. You should listen 2/3 of the day and talk 1/3. You learn a lot more, you become more powerful. Here's an example. My stepdad was very influential with me. He basically said, look, you're gonna starve to death, you gotta go to business school. I go to do an MBA, 2-year course. As my dad said, you don't know what you wanna do, so you might as well just get some technical training, which I did. I got 3 months off, I got to find a gig, summer gig. Get a job at a company called Nabisco Brands, okay? They have a pet food division, Miss Mew cat food. I get the job there working for a Dutch product manager, very cool guy. First day on the job, takes me to the rendering plant where they make the basic pastes that you make cat food with. Either you make it with Sea of Japan tuna, the dark meat, or you make it with beef rendering and chicken faces, where they take beef lips, beef faces, chicken faces, render them with papaya juice, crush them down, make a paste. And then you add, for example, this is good, I'm here, you take little celery bits, for example, and you add it to the paste. So let's say you're putting celery with Sea of Japan tuna, and you call that tuna casserole. Maybe we call it tuna Mediterranean salad, whatever it is, bits of other stuff, but it's basically the paste. You have two things. You got the Sea of Japan tuna, you got the chicken faces, the beef renderings. They make up everything. And all the rest of the facings or market share is based on the little add-ins you put into that cat food. Anyways, I spend my 3 months working on a new flavor. My job was to launch a new flavor that September, before I went back for my second term. And there's about 100 salesmen and women in the room, and I have to present the flavor. And the thing you got to know about cat food is we had this in Upper Vermont, we had this place, a farm where we tested the cat food on cats, and I learned that cats actually would prefer more water in their food. But that's not an easy thing to sell to people. When they open the can, it looks like soup. They don't like it. So you have to find that balance between how much water's in there versus, what the cats like versus what the people like. But I was a rookie and I didn't get the joke. And the salespeople did this every year to the, intern. And I'm telling them how great the flavor is. I think it's going to be a big hit in the market. I can't remember whether I made it with the cat food or with the Sea of Japan tuna. I think I did. And they said, yeah, it's great, Kevin. If it's so good, why don't you eat some? Now, it smelled like absolute shit, and it was soupy towards the side the cats liked, and I looked at it and went, whoa. But, I'm the rookie, I didn't get the joke, so I did. I put it on a cracker and I ate it, and it was bad. But cats liked it, I knew that from the test. Everybody roared with laughter. They told me it's a standard joke they do on interns, but I get it, And it worked, and I got a nice bonus after those 3 months working there. But here's the thing. Here's my revenge, if you want to call it that. Years later, now we're in software. We're at the Learning Company. We're at Boston. We're the world's largest educational software company. We make software, Reader Rabbit, Carmen San Diego, Mavis Beacon teaches typing, Oregon Trail, you name it, we make it. We spend millions on R&D. But basically in education, in our school system, there's 110,000 schools, all right? The majority of them are in New York, Florida, Texas, California. We sold to the school systems too. And what parents wanted, and what teachers wanted, and what students ultimately needed was to advance their reading and math scores. Reading, math, see Japan tuna, chicken faces? All of a sudden, I'm sitting at lunch and I'm talking to the guys and we're thinking about next year and the millions we're going to spend on R&D. I said, guys, let me tell you this story about cat food. I said, if we're really just doing reading and math titles and throwing in bacon bits in the form of another character, Big Bird or Reader Rabbit or Carmen Sandiego or Mavis Speak and Teaches Typing, whatever it is, it's just a character, but the basic code is reading and math. Why don't we consolidate down to 2 engines, save millions in R&D, just have 2 teams and some graphic artists to put in the characters on top. The kids don't care, they're 4 to 7 years old. I'm not saying kids are cats, but you know what I'm saying. We saved millions that next year, where our cost of capital went way down and we acquired all our competitors. Where'd that come from? That was the lesson the Dutch guy taught me in the cat food business. My whole point is, you don't know when you're learning a lesson, so shut up and listen. The key to motivation is routine. Now that may sound boring and mundane, but it's not. If you get into a healthy routine, and that includes a lot of things, like for me, it's getting up early, working out 45 minutes to an hour every day, and then really into the routine of taking care of yourself too. Routine is part of motivation. Every day, you're gonna get thrown a ton of shit is gonna hit you, particularly if you're an entrepreneur. Even if you're just working in a job, you're gonna get emails and texts about. Nobody says, hey, you're doing a great job, I just want to send you an email. They say, here's 5 problems I'm having right now, and here's the storm I'm in today, go fix it. That's generally 99% of your communications. So when you're working, you have to kind of categorize what you're going to deal with first. Now, to stay motivated, here's a little trick that I've used. Start your day with the biggest problem. When you've got all your energy, take it right out of the gate. Whatever it is, it's going to be some horrific problem, you got to deal with it. Get it done first. Generally speaking, there's going to be 5 to 7 things you have to do every day. You won't get them all done every week and every day, but you want to take the top 3 and nail them. And the trick to that is to do nothing else till you solve those problems. That's a big trick. I learned this years ago. I actually post this stuff the night before, with a little sticky note, right on the mirror. It's very, very useful. So what I do every night is I take a little MC Squares. You know that product? That's one of my Shark Tank deals, wonderful company. And I write down the things I got to get done the next morning. There's no tech here. I actually write it down, stick it on the mirror. Get up in the morning, work out, come back for the shower, start nailing down those things. I always have my phone with me, so if I can start working on one of those things when I'm shaving, I'll call the guy up and I'll be shaving, getting it done. One of the biggest tricks of motivation is if you actually solve a big problem first when you have all the energy at the beginning of the day, it actually motivates you to keep going. No question about it. Now, the other issue you've got to deal with motivation is be able to take a minute off. Sometimes when I'm just frazzled, could be 2 in the afternoon, this is a trick. You just go sit in a chair and do something completely different. Listen to some tunes, take a snooze, read a book. It has nothing to do with the stuff you're doing during the day. Now, the people in the Mediterranean know this trick. They call it a siesta. They always take a snooze at 1 to 2. And the food they eat's really great, which leads me a great segue into the next piece. Do not eat food. People say, oh, it's too expensive to eat good food. Not so. You really, really don't want to eat crap. Crap drags you down. Now, what's crap? Look, everybody likes to snack, but you can't eat crap, and you know what I'm talking about. Overly fatty, too much salt, too much sugar, too much snacking, too many chocolates, all that stuff. You can indulge a little bit, but your core base of the 3 meals you eat during the day have to be good food. You cannot run the body with crap food. It just doesn't work, and you will learn this pretty damn fast. Now, that also means I like to drink wine. You got to drink it in moderation. So I have a little rule for myself. I never drink before I go on television. I never drink until 4 o'clock. Why? I'm involved in the financial markets, so they're open till 4. I never drink till 4 o'clock. Usually I don't even drink till at 5.
I'm a manager at 19 years old. Lately, I've been running into some problems with some staff being insubordinate when asking them to do simple tasks. I'm not sure how to go about disciplining them. What makes it a bit awkward for me is that I'm probably the youngest person in my organization, or one of the youngest. So often I find people disregard my authority. Can I go around this the right way?
Reza, 19-year-old manager. Born to lead, my friend. That's what it sounds like to me. 19 years old. Here's the key to being a successful manager. People don't have to like you. They have to respect you. And you have to respect them too. Great managers in life, and I've gone through this in my career, you don't have to like the people that work for you, but you have to show them respect and they have to reciprocate that. In managing companies, it's all about respect. And it's primarily setting goals for people and asking them to buy into those goals and agreeing with you that those are achievable and giving them at least 3 months to go achieve them. So I wouldn't get worried about the social impact or the concerns about being a manager at 19. It doesn't matter how old you are, it's irrelevant. It matters if people are willing to follow you, respect you, listen to you, work with you, and set goals together that you both achieve. If you can do that at 19, you are a rock star, my friend. And I have a sense that maybe you are. But remember, show respect, and respect something that you don't have, experience. Because when you're 19, you don't have any of that. So if you meet somebody that's working for you that's a lot older, respect what they know that you don't. It's all about respect. You have to have a plan in your life for what's going to happen to you when you hit your 60s and 70s and 80s, and maybe by then your 90s, because people are living longer all the time. How do you get a nest egg together? Well, the average salary in America is around $58,000. And so I'm going to give it to you in a nutshell. You have to start saving in your early years, in your 20s, $100 a week, minimum. But it's not just the saving aspect. You've got to invest that money. So you have to take that $100 out of whatever your activity is, or you're going to start a side hustle. Maybe you're going to be a photographer, maybe you're going to be a writer, maybe you're going to do something else, a separate job where you can make at least, $100 a week after tax, and you're going to invest it. You're not going to save it, you're going to invest it. Saving is what you have in cash. Investing is what you put into the market. Now, the market is a volatile thing, is the first question, made reference to. And when you invest in the stock market, what matters is diversification. You don't know which stocks are going to go up and down or when. You don't know which sectors of the economy are going to outperform the others. You have no idea. But if you look over a long period of time, what you see is a stock market that returns around 6 to 8% a year. And if you start to put aside $100 a week in your early years, you're going to end up with, if the markets do what they did for the last 100 plus years, you're going to end up with about $1.5 million when you're 65. That is really important. My son's an electrical engineer. In his 3rd year, decides to take an internship at Tesla. We're sitting at the kitchen table. He gets invited, he accepts. He's really interested because he was on the car team at his college. And a lot of people don't know this. Every cohort, electrical engineers, race F1 Formula cars they build from scratch against each other. MIT generally would beat everybody. But in this particular Nebraska race, Trevor, who was the captain of the team, beat MIT. Now, of course, at all these races, the Tesla guys and the BMW guys and the Audi guys and the Ford guys are running around meeting these teams. So his team did very well. He's on sort of on the battery management side. He got an internship. But here's the story. We're sitting at the kitchen table. I'm looking over at my screen because I manage, I'm in the financial services industry with ETFs. And I'm looking over and Tesla's down 13% because they missed a quarter or an analyst said to short the stock or whatever. I said to Trevor, this company looks like a dog. This thing is down so much. He said, Dad, nobody understands this company. This is not a car company. It's a data company. It has the highest resolution of miles driven on Earth. Every time a Tesla drives, it reports back to HQ and makes the resolution of that road even clearer for future autonomous driving. And I said, what does that mean, Trevor? Should I not think of this as a car company? He said, no. Think about it as a data company with extremely high resolution data, and you should own some. So I bought some stock. Do you know this is the highest return on any stock I own? Because that was the low that day, just by happen chance, and I'm up like
I don't know, 90%. And the car company barely makes any money. This is why I always listen to people that know more about something than I do. And Trevor clearly understood that he had a different vision for what Tesla was. He loved working there. But to me, that is the future. And boy, am I glad I own that stock. And to Elon, who I saw recently out in LA, I thanked him. I said, listen, Elon, all I know about you is you've made me money. This whole entrepreneurial journey, most people I talk to, they have this unique moment in their lives when this happens. And for me, it was when I was in grade 11 in high school, and I got my first job. And when I teach these days, I always tell this story, but I'll tell it to you now. I wanted that job because the girl I was interested in high school was working at the shoe store across the mall, and this was an ice cream store, and they were looking for a scooper. And so I took the job, and the first day I was there, the owner, was a woman, said to me, you know, when you give the little samples out of ice cream on little sticks, people take their gum out and they throw it on the floor, and this store had Mexican tiles, beautiful tiles. And the gum was, you know, got stuck on them and it turned dark, it looked ugly. Day was over, you know, I shut all the ice cream bins down, and I was ready to get back on my bike, go home, and she said to me, scrape the gum off the floor. You can't leave before you scrape the gum off the floor. And I said, well, and I knew that this girl was watching me from across the mall because we were going to check out and you know, go get a soda or something together. I was really looking forward to it. And I said to the owner, I can't, you hired me as a scooper. I'm not a scraper. I'm not going to get down on my knees, because I didn't want her to, you know, the girl across the hall to see me on my knees scraping gum. And she said, no, you're an employee. You're going to do exactly what I say. This is Magoo's Ice Cream Parlor. This was Magoo's Ice Cream Parlor. It was right here. The counter was right here. And she said, you're fired. Get out of my ice cream store. But within minutes, I was on my bicycle on my way home in utter shame, in shock that she had that kind of control over my life. Changed my life forever. I have never, ever in my life worked for someone again. Ever. No one has ever had control over me, ever. And never will. And that's another one of those moments where the lights go off and I realized in life there's two types of people. There's the people that own the store, and there's the people that scrape the shit off the floor. And you kind of have to decide, which one do you want to be? And I'm not dissing being an employee. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a different life. If you want that security, that's cool. And you can be a great employee, and I've talked about that before, but I didn't want to be an employee. I didn't want someone to have that kind of power over me. I never wanted that ever again. And she was the reason. I owe her so much that she twisted me that day and I never had a job. I never had a full-time job again in my life. I only worked for myself from that day on. That was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. I'm going to share a little trick with you and all viewers. You see these pencils here on my desk? I've got these all over the place. I got probably thousands of these. And I have this. This is the lowest tech thing you've ever seen, sticky note. During the day, here's one this morning, I write down things I have to get done. I know it's low tech. There's all kinds of software can do this for you. I don't care. I like pulling a pencil and simply writing down, oh yeah, I got to get that thing done, and just making that note. I learned this from a very successful person years and years ago, my mother. And this note just sits here all day, and at night, if I haven't finished, and usually there's 3 or 4 I haven't done, I look at it and say, okay, tomorrow I will get this done before anything else, before, you know, I go online, before I read anything, you know, I go watch television, before I make any phone calls or texts or anything. I'm going to get this thing done. And I stick it on the mirror on the right-hand side. Number 1, record bass line for track 15. All right, so I found a piece of music that I recorded back in '89. I'm working on a documentary about watch dials, which I think you're going to find interesting when I finally get it finished, but it needs the music so the editors can work with the beat of the music. And this thing I recorded in '89 does not have any bass, and I didn't play bass back then. Now I do, so I'm going to go back in the studio and lay down the bass track for track 15. reconcile foreign currency. I have investments over in Europe, and each month I reconcile to the currency to figure out how much of the performance was gained or lost by the change in the currency rates. So I want to do that this morning. It's important to get that done for last month because, you know, if you don't have that information, you can't make moves. And number 3, tape questions 4 and 5 for Tax Hive. Tax Hive is a new business I've got involved in as an investor and also as a spokesperson. This is a company that helps small business with their taxes and payrolls, very important in my portfolio companies. So I'm recording some messages, and 4 and 5 have to be done today, so I'm gonna go into the studio and record those. Great take. That's the one. Before I do anything else today, these 3 puppies are gonna get done. And that is how you get super productive. And you don't let anything distract you. You don't take a phone call, you don't do emails, you don't do anything. You get the things done that you made the priorities the night before. Do it every day. Try it. It's fantastic. Look at this low tech. Low tech. You write it down on a piece of paper, stick it on the mirror. Come on, it works. I'm going to give you 5 tips, and I want everybody that's interested in figuring out how to get hired or wants to get hired to listen to these, because I'm going to treat it as if I'm hiring you, okay? I've done a lot of interviews in my time. These are the things that matter. So let's start with basically this. You got to perfect your resume. I don't need to know the job description of every place you've ever worked. I need to know what you accomplished that was something the average Joe wouldn't have done. I don't hire for competence. I hire people who routinely go above and beyond what's adequate. You got to communicate that. Don't leave blank spaces on your resume. That's number 2. Plenty of people have gaps in their work experience. Try and fill your time with things that matter to you. Just because you don't have a full-time job doesn't mean it isn't time to go and be idle. Get a volunteer gig or show your compassion and energy. Take an online course. Show you want to better yourself. I don't like to see gaps in resume. Nobody who hires does. So be careful when you're filling it out. You're doing something all the time. When you do the interview, number 3, watch your body language. If you're shaking your knee nervously or anxiously picking your nails at a time when we're meeting, how can I trust you to confidently represent my company in a high-stakes meeting? I like some peace and quiet, but focus. On a similar vein, this is number 4, dress the part. It doesn't always mean a 3-piece suit and a hot watch. Look, if you're in financial services or something, a tie is a good idea, but if you're a coder, I don't care if you wear a t-shirt and jeans. It's what the other people are wearing. You don't want to stick out like a sore thumb, okay? Look, you don't need cufflinks if you're a coder. I just want to know if you can code. And number 5, show me you know how to plan for yourself and for my company. How does the job I'm hiring for fit into your career and life plan? I don't want to hire somebody who's there for a one-off in-between job or who leaves disappointed that the job I gave them didn't lead to a career trajectory they had hoped for. I don't want to hire someone who joins my company and thinks they're just going to be comfortable when business is good. I always want business to be great. I want to be growing. My staff only knows how to think ahead. Good business isn't good enough. We're constantly working and planning towards being better. If you can communicate that in a job interview, I'm going to hire you, and so is everybody else. I have failed a lot. Many failures. I can give you some. I just gave you one earlier. I lost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, at least on paper, for a long time shorting Yahoo. That was a big mistake. Stupid of me to do that. Then I started a business. I've started many startups when I was an operator that actually failed. One was involved with one of the giant cable companies, and I probably spent about 18 months on that. Made no money, lost a lot. I think in that case about $750,000. Ouch, that hurts. It really stung. I've invested in other deals. Some were friends, some were other business associates that went to zero. Generally, in a startup, I'll put up about $250,000 and wait and see what happens, then put more in. And there was one that I put $250,000 into, and then within 6 months they needed more money. Even though my gut was telling me don't invest in it, I put another $250,000, and within 6 months, lost another $500,000. I've made many mistakes, but I learn from my mistakes. That's the key. I am not going to be successful in everything I do, and I want you to embrace that idea as an entrepreneur. You are not going to be successful all the time. You will make many, many mistakes, and it's okay. It's okay as long as you learn from it. Now, I don't make the same mistakes anymore. I make new mistakes. I learn from those again, and that's what's called experience. The difference between when you start your career and when you get to the middle of it in the end is all the mistakes you've made and what you've learned from them. And the older you get, the more you've learned. And that's the whole idea. And when I work with young entrepreneurs today and with my teams and my companies, I try and explain to them the mistakes I've made so they don't make the same ones. That's the whole idea. But I've made millions of dollars of mistakes. And I once ran as a politician and lost millions of dollars doing that. Was that a mistake or was that a learning experience? I'm still haven't decided yet. But it's sort of those experiences in life are made up. The patina of life, the rust of life, the coating of life is all the experiences, not just the successes, but the failures you've made. Now, do I like losing money? No. Do I cry like a baby when it happens? Yes, because I know how hard it is to make it. Really hard, and I hate to lose it. But I make sure that I distill the essence of that lesson. That's very, very important. A mentor taught me this years and years ago. When you're an entrepreneur, there's so much noise coming at you. There's so much distracting you, and you're trying to make everybody happy, and you're trying to solve problems for everybody that works for you and the customers that you have. And it's so powerful that sometimes you lose focus. Sometimes you forget why you're there. You have to set goals, both short and long term, and stay myopically focused on achieving those. You have to shut out the noise. You have to shut out the criticism. You have to shut out the haters, the guys that are hassling you, the people that are calling you your competitors, all that stuff. And you're going to have all that. You're going to have all of that stuff, and that's all distracting. If you have the ability to just shut that out of your head, you'll be successful because you stay focused on the prize. People are very, very challenging to work with sometimes. You're going to find that out. It doesn't mean you can't work with them. But if you're trying to make everybody happy, you will make everybody unhappy eventually because you can't do it. You have to think about three things. Your customers, are you taking care of them? 2, your employees, are you taking care of them? And number 3, your shareholders are the people that loan you the money to run your business. They are what you spend your time on 24/7. You can't solve all the world's problems. You can't take care of every baby whale. You can't clean up all the oceans overnight. You have to stay focused on your business to make that successful. Then after you've become successful, and hopefully you will, you can start focusing on all the other things that are really important to you. But if you try and do that at the beginning before you solve for your customers, your employees, and your shareholders, you're going to fail. And that's what many, many young entrepreneurs don't understand. You've got to have a myopic focus to shut out that noise. I know it's not easy to do that, and making people unhappy with you because you're so razor focused can often feel troubling to you. But if you can't do that, you're not a leader. If you can't do that, you will not be a successful entrepreneur. If you can't focus, you just won't make it. So remember that. These are tough love suggestions, all right? It's just the nature of how it works. But if you can, and you ask me what makes entrepreneurs successful, myopic focus on the long-term and short-term goals and not letting anything else distract them. You know, when you're an investor, I mean, the core for me is I like to have an investment philosophy. You know, in my case, and I say this to people, it's not about just investing for growth. It's investing to protect your money in case there's a catastrophic change in the market. So preservation of capital is my number one mandate. And towards that, one of my early investments was to found my own indexing company, a company that makes exchange-traded funds. And I did that. I own 50% of O Shares, which is a company that's been very successful producing, products like OUSA, a core subset of the S&P that I can invest in long-term so that I'm getting dividends. And then for the digital economy, I told the CEO, I said, why is it that I'm spending so much money? This was 2 years ago. Look at how much I'm spending on Zoom, how much I'm spending on CrowdStrike, how much I'm spending on Shopify. Look at my budget on JD.com, on Alibaba, on Facebook, on DocuSign.
I'm spending millions on these guys. Why don't you index that for me? Figure out the top 70 companies around the world that are digitizing the economy, build me an index, and I'll invest in that. And that's what OGIG was. That thing is up over 80% this year. And obviously, that's a big investment of mine. And the thinking for me was, if I'm writing checks to those companies, why don't I own them? Why don't I own them? Because they are the new, they're allowing the digitization of the global economy. They're the internet giants, and they're growing at 20, 30, 40% a year. I mean, Shopify has 1 million businesses on its platform now, including all of mine. And the reason I do that is I do business with Amazon. That's 40% of my sales. But I also want to sell direct, where I collect my own customer data, and I can't do that with Amazon, so I do it with Shopify. That's part of the index of OGIG. So that's, one of the ways I invest. And I just look at it and say to myself, invest in things you understand how they're growing. And that's what I do.
Don't do everything yourself. You just won't be successful. You can't do everything on your own because you don't have 100% skill set. Nobody does. You got to find partners. You got to find allies. You have to find compadres that you're going to work with, particularly in business. All of my deals now, I never do them alone. I form a team, and we'll often seed a company together. We're investors together, and we work together towards success. I do that all the time, generally twice a year. But I wrote about a lot of this stuff. I never plug my books, but these have been bestsellers. Kevin O'Leary, The Cold Hard Truth. I like it. It took me forever to write. I mean, it's hard work, right? And people think you write a book quickly. This thing took me like 1.5 years. Then I wrote a follow-up, Family, Kids, and Money. A lot of the things I'm talking about are in these books. Get them on Amazon if you want. They're interesting. But it's from the perspective of making mistakes, learning from them, not making those mistakes again, that kind of thing. So motivating yourself to engage with people enrich your lives. Even people you don't like to work with that you work with enrich your lives. They give you a different perspective, a different set of eyes. In investing, it's very important. People ask me, why do you have advisors that you work with? I say, because I want to hear their perspective on my investments. I want to hear what they think. If all you do is listen to yourself, you'll make lots and lots of mistakes because you won't take those challenges. You won't take risks the same way, but you've got to hear from other people. So motivation is about keeping a network of people that help you motivate yourself.
The side hustle is really a great idea. And let me explain why. I used to run around just a year ago when I'd have a talk like the one we're having right now, and people would say, well, how should I invest for college? And I always say, well, there's only 3 options if you want to get a job. Engineering, engineering, and engineering. And if you want a backup plan, become an engineer. But I don't feel that way anymore, because what I've learned in the last 9 months is when I look at the money I've spent on artists, who are they? Copywriters. I've spent money on videographers, video editors, photographers, animators. Why? Because I've had to redo my entire digital platform on all my companies so that people would engage in the product or service and make it rich enough content that they would buy direct from us as opposed to go to retail, which doesn't exist anymore in the same way. And that's all art. That's all great storytelling. That's all great photographers. Now, that's a great side hustle. If you know how to cut video, if you know how to use Adobe, if you know how to record stuff, if you can write copy, if you can do animation, if you're a good photographer, come on. Are you kidding? The world is screaming for those talents, and you can make plenty of money on the side. I'm paying tons of dough to editors in Israel and France and England and Australia, time shifted, even in China and India. All these people that are working with us on digital content just so we can be working 24/7, digitizing all of our platforms. So there's a big opportunity, and a lot of kids know how to do this because they've become hip to social media. They know how to use their cameras. And a lot of the stuff that we actually post now is shot, with iPhone 11s, and now the 12 is 4K, 60 frames a second. It's spectacular video quality. That's broadcast quality. We're going to be using it for all of our social media. So I'm looking for talented people that know how to do that.
I've come to a new place in my understanding what works and doesn't. I also went through the educational process. I did an MBA, and people ask me, does that have anything to do with success or failure? And I say, no, it doesn't. I don't remember a single thing I learned there for the 2 years except the people I met that now are out there in the world as bankers and lawyers and whatever else they are, and I use them as my database of contacts to help build my businesses. So I think that was important, but the classes, I forget completely what it was about. I will say one thing, though. I've learned something from what the Europeans do, Evan, and listen to this. In Switzerland, I have a stepfather who's Swiss. He lives in Geneva, Switzerland. I've been going over there for 40 years, back and forth. Take a company like Nestle. They offer an internship program that they call an apprentice program over there. It's almost like the sorcerer's helper in a Disney movie. In high school, if you think you like the food industry, maybe, Nestle's a global food company, they'll let you come in and work on weekends and afternoons after school to see what it's like in the real world, even though you're just a teenager. Why are they doing that? They're trying to figure out who is going to be the next asset for their company that is going to be someone who attaches themselves to the business maybe long term. So they get to try you out, you get to try them out, they pay you a small stipend, but that's an apprenticeship. What an opportunity for you. You're a teen. You're sitting in a meeting with a bunch of managers, you're absorbing all that stuff, and you're learning. Why the hell don't we do that in North America? Because maybe 1 out of 10 is the right person, but once you're indoctrinated, if that's the right word, into call it the Nestle program, you're a Nestleite. You're there. They want you, you want them, and away your career goes. I love it. I think every company in North America should take that program on and offer this opportunity to kids in their teens and say, look, you want to see what work is? You want to see what it's like? Get in here. But it also gives you a chance as an entrepreneur to say, I understand the corporate structure and now I want to try something a little different on my own, but I will have had that base of information, not only about what it's like, but that sector. If you love the food industry, you're with the El Supremo and you're learning about it. And then one day you can split off and say, hey, Nestle, I'm going to build this food business. You want to buy it from me after it gets to 50 million? That's the program I like.
If you want another amazing Kevin O'Leary video, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Most people think, oh, I'm going to start a company, 2 months later it's going to be worth $1 billion, and I'm going to make a fortune. That is actually not what happens to 99% of people.
What is your version of balance? That's all that matters.
There's no balanced life.